Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to episode 5. Thank you. Episode 5 of the pod. Today, as you've probably seen all over Twitter and all over the place, we have the man, the myth, the absolute Reading legend, Mr. Friday. He's come on. Today is basically what we want to try and do for you guys today. It's just to get to know the man. We all see him on Twitter giving us all the breaking news and everything before anyone else. But he is a person. So what we want you guys today is to understand who he is so you can stop bombarding him with 1,021 questions like I've done. But I'll try and stop. 1,021 questions and just understand that he has other things and try and do things. But we want you guys to know him and for him to have a better understanding of what bit more about us as well. So, the very first question that I have for you, Mr. Friday, is what got you into journalism?
It's a long story. I hope you got time. It actually started when I was about 12 or 13, and I used to do a paper round for the Evening Post. I grew up in Reading. I'm a Reading lad. I used to do a paper round for the Evening Post. So I used to get the newspapers delivered to my house every day, and before I'd go out and deliver it, I'd sort of sit on my doorstep and read all the Reading news. I think it was about 2004, 2005. So it was obviously when things were going really well for Reading at the time, and I think that kind of just inspired me. It was I think at the time actually I thought, it's because everything was so positive back then. I was like, yeah, this is great. You can just write really great stuff. I learned that lesson later down the line. But yeah, that's how it started. Just going from that, just reading the newspapers, and it was, I used to spend all day, every day, just looking on Sky Sports News, and I was just obsessed with football news. And then all through school, English was the only thing I really paid much attention to. It's the only thing I really enjoyed. Went to university, did a degree in journalism, and then went on from there.
So what made you? So we've got noted that you went to the University of Worcester. So what made you sort of go down that route and go there? Was it?
So being honest, because it was the only university that I got into. I wasn't the most, what's the word? I wasn't the ideal school pupil, if you like. I didn't do that great in school, apart from English. I didn't really have any other sort of subjects that I was that good at. So I applied I was actually living in Stockholm at the time, so I spent all my teenage years living in Sweden. But I knew, obviously, my family had decided, or my parents had decided that they're moving back to the UK. So I knew I was moving back to the UK, so I applied for some universities in the UK. I think I applied for Worcester, one in Wales, which I can't remember, and there was one other, but the other two didn't accept me. So Worcester was the only one that I got an acceptance for, and it was like a conditional offer. So I had to write an essay, basically explaining why I thought I'd be a good journalist. So yeah, it was luck more than anything actually that I got into university. That's how I got in there.
That's amazing. So you got a bachelor's degree, if I'm right, in that as well. Yeah. So how did you get from doing your bachelor's degree into getting to, because it says on what I've looked at and what I've seen that you first started off at the Reading Chronicle, if that's right, after you left uni. So how did you start off with that?
Yeah, it's kind of right. So I did some work experience at the Reading Chronicle while I was at uni, because one of the modules, people will know, if you go to uni, you have to go off and do like a week's placement somewhere. So I'd done some work experience at the Chronicle, and then when I left uni, actually, I decided that I hated journalism. I never wanted to be a journalist. I was going through a phase where I was like, I'm done with this now. So I actually went and worked in a hotel. And I was a conference and events manager for 2 years. So I decided that I was going to just stay in hotels for the rest of my life. And then it was actually, funny enough, it was actually a conversation with my mum. I think she realised that I was quite unhappy with what I was doing. And she said, look, you've got a degree. Like, what are you doing with yourself? Like, not you're better than this, but you can go out and do something that makes you happy if that's what you want to do. So she actually sent me packing, sent me to the Reading Chronicle. So I literally went and knocked on the door, asked to speak to the editor, and sat down with her and we just had a conversation and just said, I really want to get into journalism. This is what I can do. And at the time, so with my degree didn't come to be a journalist. You have to have this accreditation called the NCTJ. My course wasn't accredited, so I didn't have shorthand or anything like that. So they said they'd get me in. I could come in like once or twice a week and just see where I'm at. And in I think it was the first week or the second week, I actually found the front page story, and it was completely fluke. That sounds a lot more impressive than it is. I just happened to know someone who knew something, and I gave it to the editor. She said, "That's brilliant. That's going to go on the front page." And then a week after that, someone was leaving, and I got a phone call while I was at work at the hotel, and they sort of said that if you want a job, if you want to come full time, you can come and work on the news desk. The only condition was that I had to do the rest of my studies while working. Mm-hmm. So that was really difficult. So I was working as a full-time trainee reporter and sort of studying in the evening. So learning all the, the shorthand and the legal side of things. So again, it was just potluck. It really there was some hard work in it as well, but it's definitely a case of being in the right place at the right time.
Sounds like a lot of hard work. So going back probably quite a long time now, but do you remember what your first story report that you made, really?
I do. Embarrassingly, my mum's got it in a photo frame in her house. I can't remember exactly the people it was, but it was something to do with the bowling club in Reading. Bowls, the game that they play. Mm-hmm. They had like a former England international bowler come down for the day and play a game with them, and I got sent out to take some pictures and write a little report on it. So it wasn't the most exciting thing in the world, but it was a really proud moment for me because it was the first time I'd ever had my name sort of printed in any newspaper, and my mum was overjoyed and still has the cutting to this day. So it's got pride of place on the mantelpiece, I think, still.
All right, let's test you then. Who was that England international bowler?
I couldn't tell you. I really couldn't. I don't think I was even too sure at the time who he was, to be fair. So no.
Taking pictures of the wrong person.
Yeah, exactly.
So after you did, with that as well, what I also saw is then you become a senior reporter at INS news agency. So how did that all become about as well? You can see that I've stalked you as well, can't you?
You've done your research. So when I was first at the Chronicle, I did quite well in my first sort of year. Mm-hmm. And then the company went through sort of like a transition period where a lot of people were leaving. And so the editor who had hired me, she had gone on to INS, which is a news agency, where she had actually been before, and she basically offered me a job, and it was just a really great chance. It was a massive step going from working on local newspapers to working for nationals. So with agencies, you're kind of it's sort of like rent-a-reporter, if you like. So you'll get the national newspapers will phone up in the morning and say, right, we need you to send a reporter to X, Y, and Z. So it was a huge step up and a really big learning curve. But it was fun. Looking back on it, I'm glad I did it.
Oh, that's good. So you went back. Was it right? You went back to the Chronicle after 7 months, I think I saw as well.
Yeah.
So what sort of happened with the transition between that and
it wasn't like, it was a learning curve, and like I said, I'm glad I did it because I learned a lot. But doing that sort of national, it just wasn't for me. I just wasn't enjoying it. It was a lot of sort of like sitting outside of celebrities' houses and hoping to get a comment. And
right, okay.
Yeah, it just wasn't. Some of it was really fun. Like you got sent on some really high profile sort of like court cases and things, which I loved. I could have done that all day, every day. But there are other sides of it that I just it wasn't for me. And I still had friends at the Chronicle, and I wasn't doing any. I wanted to get into sport, into covering Reading, and yeah, it just got to the point where I'd had enough of it really, and I wanted to go back.
That's good. So how long have you been talking? So when you went back to the Chronicle, and you were doing it, was your first doing Reading, or did you have to work your way up to do? Well, it's not really working because Reading's not big enough to work up to. but was there a transition where you had to do certain things before you got to Reading, or when you went back, was it straight into
so
doing Reading?
I'd actually started doing Reading a little bit before I went to INS, I think. It all came about. So I got quite close to the sports editor at the Chronicle, Anthony Smith. You probably know him, Smudger Sport on Twitter. Yeah, amazing journalist, even better person. So I got really close with him while I was working there the first time. And I never tried to get in the way, but I'd always sort of ask if he needed help. A bit of not brown nosing, but I'd sort of plod along to his desk and see if there's anything I could do to help out or whatnot. And he'd give me little like press releases and stuff to write. I always remember it. It was a busy deadline day, but we were quite ahead, so we got the news section of the paper was pretty much done. And then Reading hopefully announced the signing of, I think it's Ali Al Habsi. So we're literally going into print in a couple of hours, and they say, right, we've signed Ali Al Habsi, and you can come and interview him. And Smudger was so busy sorting out the sports section, so he wasn't able to go. So he came over and said, "Oh, if you're not doing anything, could you go and interview Ali Al Habsi?" And I thought, right, this is it. This is my big break. So yeah, I went along I met him at the hotel. That was my first sort of lesson in sports journalism, because I didn't realise that sports reporters don't use shorthand; they all use dictaphones. So the other guys there are all sat there just with their microphones out, and I'm frantically scribbling away trying to get every single word of what Ali Al Habsi was saying. So after I did that, I then asked Smudger if I could go to a game with him and just watch him and just see what he does. And then one game turned into 2, and then 3, and a full season, and here I am. I just went on from there.
So talking about interviewing Ali Al Habsi goes quite well on to the next one. But who's the most famous person that you've interviewed?
We've got him.
Oh yeah, you have got me. Do you know what, it depends on levels of fame, but I think I've interviewed David Hasselhoff, and he is pretty famous. So
pretty,
despite all
that guy's a legend, isn't he? Yeah.
Despite all the footballers and football managers and things, I think I have to say David Hasselhoff. Yeah, he was.
What's he like?
It was no, I didn't. no comment.
What was that interview for?
It was for, believe it or not, he was doing a pantomime or a play at the Hexagon in Reading. So he was doing some sort of promotional thing, and it was just silly. You got 10 minutes with him, and you could ask 3 questions, and yeah, it wasn't. It was not really an interview I look back on very fondly, but I absolutely loved Knight Rider as a kid. To be fair, I say as a kid, I still love it now. So yeah, it was quite a cool experience to be sat down with David Hasselhoff.
That would have been amazing. Okay, yeah. So if you could say one good thing and one bad thing that you've experienced during your time as a journalist, what would you say is the main good thing and the bad thing that you've experienced?
The good thing is there are lots of good things, or there are lots of bad things as well. For me, it's, I guess, this will sound really lame, but when you sort of run with a story, and you think you've got it right, and then it sort of, when it turns out to be right, and you see people who are generally sort of appreciative of you bringing them the news. That's always a good thing, and sort of building that rapport with, and also a relationship with people. That's probably my favorite thing. Bad thing, yeah, I mean, I think it's quite well documented at the moment that social media isn't always the nicest place to be, and there are times when things don't go in your favor, or things don't quite come off for whatever reason. And yeah, social media can be very difficult at times.
Okay, so I've got a couple of questions. I know Ryan's got another question because we've got a list next to us. Literally, I'm not going to lie to you. I have a list here of questions that I wrote, and luckily I did it yesterday while I was stalking you. So I would just want to add a sort of question into that as well. So you said, I think we can all agree, apart from yourself, you probably will agree with yourself, but I know me and Ryan will personally agree that when you write a story or say, this is what's going to happen, I instantly believe you because you have one of those rapports, I think, on Twitter that when you 99%, because not everyone gets it 100%, but 99% of the time you go, okay, yeah, he's a reliable source. He knows what he's talking about. So I feel like that's one good thing that we can definitely 100% say on this pod. So what sort of, the bad thing with social media, what have you have you experienced like the really bad of the social media?
God, yeah, I've had death threats.
Have you?
Yeah, I've had all sorts. Yeah, no, I've had death threats. I've had, people sending me messages saying they're gonna, wait for me outside the office and, better look behind me when I walk. And yeah, if they see me outside the stadium, they're gonna do X, Y, and Z. So it's just trolls. And
is it up to a specific story that you've done, or is it just random? Would you say?
To be honest, I can't. Yeah, more random. Yeah, I can't really remember any sort of like specific stories which have led to it. I've had it not in like the sports side of things. When I was on the news desk, like doing, sort of did a lot of court reporting, and yeah, there've been a few times where I've been, cornered in the lift in the in the Crown Court and things, and people are saying you're not going to publish that story about my brother, are you? So yeah, I've had lots of run-ins like that, but I mean that happens, that's normal. But yeah, on social media, I think it's been more random than anything. And I'm the first to admit, obviously, I've made mistakes. Like when I was sort of like learning my trade, I made a few errors. So I have warranted not personal abuse, but I have, put myself in situations where I can understand why people would be annoyed at what I said. But yeah, obviously the level of abuse was you
understand if you do something wrong and someone goes, "Oh, come on, what are you doing? You shouldn't be doing that."
Yeah.
But then when someone then goes, "Better watch yourself," you go, "You're all right, mate. What are you doing?" Yeah. But yeah, no, Ryan, I just wanted to ask that. Ryan, carry on.
Yeah.
So it's not down here, but back to what you said just then. So when you do get like a message like that or a threat like that, surely there's sort of like you kind of have to take it seriously, don't you? You can't sort of be like whatever, because who knows, it could happen.
I mean, sometimes I look at their Twitter picture, and if it's just an anonymous, I just know it's a keyboard warrior. But if I see it's a bit of a meathead, I might watch one. But no, I'm kidding. I don't really. No, yeah, obviously you do take it. You take it to heart. It's not nice to. I mean, no one likes. If anyone likes being abused, then yeah, no one likes to receive abuse. I think the thing always was for me was, you probably know, but I was never. So I've never earned a penny out of reporting on Reading. It's never been my job. I've always done it off my own back. So even when I was working in the Chronicle, my job was a news reporter. So all the Reading FC stuff, I do it all in my own time. And I think that was part of the problem in the beginning, is people were, my Twitter following went from like 30 people to 3,000 in a couple of days. And then people were sort of like, just really demanding, like, bring us the news. And just trying to explain to them that, I've got a full-time job to do. Like, I'm doing what I can when I can. But it's not always possible. So yeah, that's one thing I certainly experienced earlier.
So is your full-time job now just concentrating on Reading, or
no? So I don't. I'm not actually breaking news. No, I actually work for a water company. So I actually work as a press officer now. So yeah, I keep my job and my football side of things are entirely separate. So yeah, I left the Chronicle 2 years ago.
Oh well, your LinkedIn. You need to update your LinkedIn profile, because that's where I found it all.
God, sorry.
I was doing so well.
Yeah, to be fair, I do need to update my LinkedIn profile.
You do. I've also tried to add you as well, just to let you know. Anyway,
I'll do that after this. I will go and update it. Yeah, okay. So my career taken a completely different path now. But my employer are great. They're really, really good to me, and more than happy for me to, continue doing what I've been doing with Reading on the weekends, and as long as it doesn't interfere with my work. So yeah, it's been quite ideal for me, really, because I have a job that I really enjoy, and I still get to do the journalism that I really enjoy without sort of the pressures of modern day journalism. I don't need to worry about paper deadlines and advertising revenue problems, and it sounds selfish, but none of that's my problem anymore. For me, it's literally if and when I have time, I can go and get a story, I can write it, I can go and report on games, I can go and interview players, and then I go back to my normal job. So it's turned out to be quite cushy, really.
Okay, so the other question I got for you as well, if you could go back and talk to your younger self about what you've experienced during university and everything, what would you tell him?
Check your sources. No. I think I'd probably say just keep at it. Like it will get better. Like in the beginning, it was really hard, and there are times when I've wanted to give up and just thought, actually, I'm not cut out for this. This is really difficult. Like it's not what I expected it to be. So yeah, I think if I had to go back, I definitely tell myself not to give up, just to keep going, keep persevering, and bad times will come, but good times will follow.
So going back, would you change anything that you've done throughout your life, really?
I don't think so. Like I'm always kind of like a big believer in things like happen for a reason. So yeah, I don't think I would change anything. Like I had a really good upbringing. I've had a really good time at university, and I've always been in quite a fortunate position. So yeah, I don't really see anything that I'd need to change. I'm quite happy where I am, to be honest.
Yeah.
So we're going to go on to now with Reading. We're going to talk a little bit about Reading and what you've experienced with the club, and a little bit about that. And LinkedIn did well for me, I think, so far.
It did well.
I thought I tried it as well.
I wasn't expecting the INS question, so
I wanted to try and find something as well that I could find as well. So with Reading Football Club, I know you've done a lot of interviews, and I know you've talked to a lot of the people behind the scenes and stuff like that. What have you experienced? Because I know that you've been doing it quite a few years. I think you've been through 3 owners, or 3 or 4 owners, 2 or 3 owners, I think.
Yeah.
You've been through. What has the differences of what you've experienced at the football club during that time?
Just highs and lows, which is the story of a Reading fan, really, isn't it? It's just I think the year I really started was when Brian McDermott was in his sort of second spell. So that was a low point. So yeah, things obviously weren't going very well. Obviously they sacked McDermott. Yapstam came in, and people will know that I'm a bit of a Man United fan.
We're going to rinse you about that later. Don't worry.
Fair enough. So Yapstam came in, and then there just seemed to be like a real buzz about the place. And we obviously had Brian Teverden as well, and they were getting in all these really great players. I remember seeing, was that the first game of that season? Was it? I think it was against Preston. I remember looking at. I was with my colleague, and I remember looking at Roy Behrens and thinking, God, what's he doing at Reading? Like he had a blinding game. And things are starting to look positive, and obviously that whole season was absolutely fantastic, up until obviously the very last moment.
Did you ever get to sit down with Yapstam or anyone?
Yeah, loads of times.
What were they like?
I honestly like.
Did you fanboy at him?
Do you know what? Actually, I didn't, which I was quite impressed with myself. But he is. I mean, anyone that knows him will tell you, like, he is the nicest man you'll meet in football. And like, forget the Premier League medals, and he is the sort of person that if you'd never met him, you think, God, he's gonna be really arrogant, and he's won Premier Leagues, Champions Leagues.
He seems like someone that would scare me.
He looks scary.
Yeah,
he's very scary.
This is a true story. He is the only football manager I've ever met who's held a door open for me. Usually they just barge through, but Yak would actually open the door, let you go, and then so he's just great. And obviously got to sit down with him most weeks really. And the only issue with Yap, and it wasn't an issue for me, but it was an issue for other people who didn't support Man United, is he would quite often go on in a sort of a tangent. So you'd be asking him a question, and then he'd say something like, "Oh, that reminds me of this time when I was at Man United and we were playing at the Dell." So for me, it was like, this is brilliant. I'm talking Man United of Yap Stam. But for everyone else, it was like, okay, come on, Yap, like let's get back to Reading. But no, yeah, brilliant guy, and yeah, it was a shame that it ended the way it did.
So do you get any notice beforehand with any managers or anything like that happens that they're going to be leaving, or was there any inkling beforehand? Because in my personal opinion of Yap Stam was, a lot of people would disagree with this, but my opinion, I don't know what Ryan thinks, was I loved the football. I was very much, when I was brought up, with the Arsenal sort of way of playing. And I know when Wenger sort of come over, he had that little style of play. But then I think when I got older, there was a DVD or videotape that I brought that you had a VCR and you put it in, and it was about Ajax, all about Ajax, how they play football, and it was about Johan Cruyff. So when I watched that, I thought, beautiful football. I sat there during that season, and where I sat, there was a lot of, how do I put this politely, elderly gentlemen that was sat around me. Yes, all the time. Why are we passing it around the back? Oh, look, the keeper's got it again. And I was very much, well, if they ain't got the ball, they can't score. So
yeah, that's always what I said.
They ain't going to score. So for me, I thought it was, I understand, but I think the issue, and Ryan, you can sort of say this afterwards as well, the issue with Yap Stam is he didn't have a plan B.
Yeah.
But a plan A, there was no plan B. And when plan A wasn't working, he panicked. And you can see that's in his other managerial jobs.
Well, I think the trouble was that in that first season, no one had really seen that sort of style of play in the Championship before. No. So people didn't really know how to set up against Reading. But then I think in his second season, teams sussed it out and thought, well, we're just going to push right up and they'll make a mistake. And unfortunately, Reading made mistakes time after time and they were punished. And I'm with you. I loved the style of football, but unfortunately, I just don't think Yap had the players that he needed to play that style of football. And I think that, ultimately, like you said, because he didn't have a player. He had quality. I'm not saying he had bad players. He had good players, but I just don't think they were suited to the brand of football that he wanted to play. And I think that obviously ultimately what cost him.
There was a couple of that season. There was a couple of teams that did find us out, because we did take a couple of absolute batterings that season. In particular, like 5-0 away at Fulham. Was that season when we got beat 7-1 by Norwich as well?
Yeah,
but let's not talk about that. But it did the second season. I'm pretty sure that Leeds kind of did start playing a similar style to that, and you see it now. Even that football has rubbed off on modern day Championship teams.
Yeah, look, teams certainly did start, passing it around the back a lot more. And, I've certainly noticed that there are a lot more teams now that will play it out from the keeper rather than, hoofing it long and upsetting the elderly fans
I think Yap Stam started it, but I also think it helped a lot when Pep come over. And when Pep started playing that football and actually got a goalkeeper that could actually kick a ball, you could see, since he's got Edison come in, you could see that even when with Edison doing it, you could see Reading wanted to do the same thing, but we never had the keeper to do that. And I think Al Habsi was a brilliant shot stopper, terrible with his feet. And remember that Man United FA Cup?
Yeah, the Rashford one, wasn't it?
Yeah, I bet you're happy with that, weren't you? But I remember with that. But now when Martinez come in, you could see that's who Yap Stam was.
Yeah, 100%. But I mean, how Reading got that deal done. I mean, he was clearly just well above. I mean, you can see now he's playing week in, week out for Arsenal. He was far above the standard of the Championship.
It's got to have been that Kia, who a lot of people hate at Reading, but I'm all right with him if he does well. But that Kia definitely had an input into that transfer anyway. So when Yap Stam left, it was Clement?
Yep.
So how was your experience? And then it all went well, didn't it? After, and then it was Bruley that come in, and then everyone started. So with the transition with Yap Stam coming out, and then Brian sort of went to the other team that the owners had in Belgium.
Roeselare.
He had that. So he sort of was transitioned over there, and there was a lot of talk that there was a lot of butting heads between him and Goulet. Well, everyone didn't like him. So what was your experience?
There were a few issues there.
Yeah. Did you ever experience Ron? Did you ever talk to him or?
Yeah, once. Lucky boy, got one conversation with him, one interview, and he basically just, I don't want to. He didn't tell the complete truth. From as far as we were concerned, I think he sort of gave us what we wanted to hear, but in reality, wasn't really what was going on. He was actually like, to speak to him in an interview situation, he speaks really well. He comes across as a nice guy, but the things that he said and what actually happened didn't quite match up. So yeah, it was.
I think you get that a lot with Goulet. Ambitions were completely different, and you see a lot. You say what the fans want to hear.
To be fair to him, like he's been very successful. So he hasn't got to where he is by fluke. So he
did really well at Chelsea, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So you can knock him as much as you like. He obviously does know what he's doing, but he
didn't do it right.
Coming into Reading, which is obviously like a family club and a tight knit club, and he really rocked the boat. And he obviously got off to a bad start with whatever was going on behind the scenes, and there was no going back for him really, I think.
So do you think what's going on now, we'll talk about what's happened to the past couple of days with Reading and stuff. Do you think we're still suffering? We've had our opinion on this, so I would like to hear what you think. Do you think we're still suffering from what he did? Or do you think that's just the easy way out?
Like financially, yes, but in terms of like the people behind the scenes, no, because I think they actually got a couple of people back when Goulet left, and it's always been quite a it's like a positive atmosphere. The staff they're all really pleasant, really happy, really bubbly. So yeah, I think we've probably got over that side of things. But yeah, I mean, certainly financially, we can talk for as long as you like about the recruitment failings and decisions that were made. That's definitely
a topic of conversation. We'll have a little bit today, but we're going to have a little bit more of that for everyone that's listening and watching as well. We're definitely going to be having a lot more conversation with Courtney as well over the next few weeks about a lot of things, and he's going to get involved in games. He doesn't realise this yet, and he doesn't know anything that's going on. And Ryan finds this out as well, that I make things up on the spot. So be prepared. So we went from to Paul Clement, and how would you describe, and Ryan as well, this is a question for you as well, because us both of you, how do you think Clement's style? Did he ever start?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if he had one, to be honest.
So if you could sum up Clement in a sentence of how he did at Reading, how would you sum it up, both of you?
Go on, Ryan. I'll let you go first.
Okay. Well, I wouldn't say at Reading in general, but I would say as a manager in general. Great assistant, not good enough as a main man. And because I don't think he's really done a good job anywhere.
He's in Belgium now, if I'm right. I think he just signed for a club in Belgium.
But you say that, but he had Derby looked like they were on the way up, and then they sacked him when they were in, was it like 6th or 7th? They were, But no, I think he came in and he had this sort of idea of what he wanted to do, and Clement, he's if you meet him, he's a big, manly man. But no, I think he's quite soft. I think he's quite, I don't want to say sensitive, but I know he had issues with sort of certain characters in the dressing room. The people like the bigger characters, like Joe Vandenberg, someone who would sort of stand up and make their feelings known.
That bloke scares me. especially on the pitch, because he looked like he was going to get a red card every game.
I mean, yeah, I wouldn't want to go into a 50-50 tackle with him.
No.
But outside of football, he was just the nicest guy ever, and he was so unmaterialistic. You see footballers now, and they've got their £10,000 Gucci backpacks and whatnot. Joey Vandenberg, he had an iPhone 5, which was like 3 years old at the point. He had a Nivea for Men wash bag, short back and sides haircut, and just drove around in like a cheap Mercedes. So yeah, just totally down to earth. But yeah, no, wouldn't want to get into a fight with him.
So I heard a story about Joey Vandenberg, which probably everyone's heard if you played FIFA or if you've listened to stories before, where he quit football, completely gave it up and was only playing part-time. I think he was a pizza delivery person, or he was doing deliveries or something, if I was right.
He had some struggles, didn't he? I think he had some problems with substances. I think alcohol was a problem for him for quite a while. So yeah, he was completely out of football, and then he did an interview about it. He was really honest. I can't quite remember what he said, but he basically knew someone who said that they could basically give him a route back into football if he sorted himself out. And yeah, thankfully he did, and I think he's still playing now. And obviously he had the later part of his career was the most successful part,
which was good. And he's one of those players that if he ever come back with an opposition team, I would never boo. He was one of those that when he put a Reading shirt on, he would put 200%, even if he didn't mean to do half the stuff that he did, or the tackles weren't as good as what he should have done. He definitely was doing that. So we went from Clement was left, and then was that the time when Gomez was I right?
Yeah. So Clement
so with Gomez, the most beautiful, handsome-looking man. If he ever stepped into a room with me, I think I would faint because I am that much in love with him.
The first time I met him was in the lift, and you've put your effort in. You've dressed up smart, you've done your hair. He walks in, and you just think, "What's the point? I'm never going to look like that." And he's just this suave, smooth Portuguese, tanned, obviously quite a handsome gentleman. And then he was really nice as well, which actually annoyed me more than anything because you think, well, there's got to be something wrong with you, surely. He's just like
it's like what Ian Holloway said about Cristiano Ronaldo.
Yeah, exactly. He literally got everything. So,
but yeah. So, how was your experience with him? And I know that there was a lot of. I think this is when the troubles started happening behind the scenes and in front of it. What was your experience with what was going on behind the scenes and what was happening with Gomez coming in and everything around that?
Obviously, when he came in, I think when he came in, the club were really sort of feeling the downsides of the recruitment issues and the wage bill, and I think he knew pretty much straight away that he needed to get, because the squad size was huge. I mean, even up until a few months ago, if you turned over the match day program where they have both teams squad list, and Reading almost needed another page. I mean, it was just player after player after player. So I think he came in knowing that he needed to get players out of the door and quickly, which obviously caused quite a few issues behind the scenes.
Before you get into that, before we get into that point. So when he come in, I think it was the December. Was it the November?
It was around about that time, yeah.
November, December time. And then the January transfer happened where I'm going to go out on a limb here and say the best transfer window I think I've ever experienced as a Reading fan. I think.
I'd say the summer was better. I thought the summer was more exciting.
What, this one?
No, the summer after. So the last summer was gone.
Okay, yeah. So, we'll get into that one as well. So was one of the best transfer windows I've experienced. Who was the one behind the signings? Was it Gomez that knew the players he wanted? Was it Howell that knew what he was doing? Was it Kia that was giving them the ideas? The owner just decided?
There definitely was some sort of intermediary involvement. Getting players like Matt Miazga and Emi Martinez. Those sorts of players don't just all of a sudden become available. Lewis Baker as well. So
because Lewis Baker was on loan at Leeds at the time, wasn't he? Up until January, and he wasn't playing. So that was the easiest, one of the best ones. And then there was just Ovi Ajaria come in as well, who was loan at Rangers at the time, I think, as well.
Yeah.
Nelson Oliveira.
Oh, yes. He was a good-looking man, wasn't he? He was a bit of a man crush. So how would you, if you could sum up the spell, I'm going to do this with all the managers here. This is a theme that we're going to go with both of you as well. Everyone knows how I feel about Gomez because I make it very plainly clear. I think he had wrong tactics and I think he did bits wrong, but I think he was right. How would you sum up his time? I'm not going to say one sentence because Ryan went a heck of a lot longer than one sentence when I asked him earlier. So, so how would you sum up his time at Reading?
I think he was just the victim of modern day football in that if you don't get immediate results, you're not going to last very long. And
do you think it was okay? So another question. I know I stopped you halfway through, but this is going to bug me. Do you think it was player power that got rid of him, or do you think it was something else?
No, I wouldn't say it was player power because he had, 5 or 6 players completely cast away from the team. So he certainly had control. Well, in my opinion, I'd say he certainly had control over the players. But the results just ultimately weren't good enough. And Reading had invested so much money, that summer into, building the team and wanting to challenge for promotion. I do think it was a bit of a panic firing, to be honest. But yeah, no, I think, like I said, I think he was just the victim of modern day football in that you have to get results straight away or you're not going to last very long.
Ryan?
Well, I think we've spoke about this before, to be honest.
I think we have just a little bit.
Yeah. I think the way I said it before, and it's the way I'd say it still, but he come in to do a job and he done exactly what was needed of him. And you said last time, you called him like the Portuguese Sam Allardyce, where you come in to, you bring him in
he's
to
done
keep
it here,
you up.
and then he's also just gone over to Portugal and done it again.
Yeah.
He's gone over and done it over there, and they won last night 2-0. Anyway, I'm not like I'm keeping up with his results or anything, but yeah.
So yeah, that's how I describe him.
Okay, so how was the situation? Did you see it from when Gomez left? Because there's a lot of Reading fans are very conflicted in how Mr. Bowen, who, if you're watching, hi, please come on. I would like to have a talk. From how was your thinking? How did you sort of hear it from how he said it? Was he just got the phone?
I think it was. So he came in as a. They never hid the fact that he came in as a consultant. They said all along that they brought this guy in to come in as a consultant, and then he went into. I can't remember what his job title was, but it was sort of like the technical director sort of role, wasn't it? And then so somewhere, somehow along the line, he ended up in front of the owners and sold himself as the next manager of Reading Football Club. So. How that came about, I don't know. They were looking at players. They were looking at managers. So they were, they always have like a list of options. But Bowen for whatever reason, obviously, managed to convince the owners that he was the right man to take it. And I think, he hasn't. I know he hasn't had sort of first team managerial experience, but. He always says it, and I do agree in a way. He has been in football a long time, so he does know the game, and he's assistant to Mark Hughes, wasn't he, for a long time?
Yeah,
so,
I think he was with him at Stoke.
Yeah, it's not as if they haven't plucked someone off the streets. It's not as if someone's walked in and said, "Oh, can I have a job, mate?" And so he does know his stuff. But no one, to answer your question, no one really knows exactly what happened.
So we've gone off on a bit of a tangent from the list of questions that we got here, but we'll go down a bit too, because we were going to ask you a bit about Bowen anyway. But in your opinion, how do you think he's done since he's joined the club? Well, become manager.
He certainly had the the sort of, what do they call it, sort of like new manager bounce. I mean, that 97th minute winner obviously helps that in his first game in charge. but yeah, I mean, there was sort of like a 2-month spell, wasn't there, where results were starting to pick up a bit, and they all
It
of a
was over
sudden
Christmas that he
yeah,
really
and
started
they
picking up,
all
and
of
that
a sudden
win against Fulham.
Yeah, they all of a sudden looked a lot more sort of compact, especially at the back. And
Mhm.
I think kind of at the time I felt actually, with a couple of transfer windows, this could maybe go somewhere. But then it just descends into the same old Reading, and performances start dropping, results start slipping away, and before you know it, you're sat near the bottom end of the table again, thinking, "Well, it's another season wasted." So
Yeah.
I think he's done okay. Personally, I think he's come into a difficult situation. He had to sort out a lot of issues off the pitch, certainly within the training ground. Like I said, with the players that sort of been cast aside, I think he did steady the ship kind of when he came in, and he has got some good results. Some of the games have been fantastic, and some of the the results have been great. So I think he's done okay. Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about those players that got cast aside. I will not try and put my input in as much as I will try not to. But let's talk about the players that got cast aside. Do you think Gomez was correct in what he did and what he was trying to do? Or do you think that was the start of his downfall?
I think I said it at the time. I think, even I thought some of the players were good enough to be at Reading, but I think as a football manager, if you decide your team, so if you know that you've got 5 or 6 players that aren't going to be in your plans, then absolutely put them on the market. If you can, get rid of them. I don't agree with the way he went about it. There's just all this ridiculous stuff like that. They had to basically get changed in a cupboard, and like they weren't allowed to sort of interact with other players when they're all at training. And I just thought, I think Gareth McCleary likened it to being locked in the chokey, which is a Matilda reference, but I think it was quite literally like that. So no, I do agree that he had every right, and he needed to trim the wage bill, and he needed to get players out. So that side of it, I never had a problem with. But the way he treated those players, I didn't think that was called for.
Yeah, because we have me and Ryan have very much. I don't know whether we have differences. I very much have a different opinion compared to a lot of Reading fans about. But I've sort of thought about it quite a lot, and I'm very happy McCleary's gone. Very happy. I had a little celebration dance after he left. But I think the people that surprised me the most during that and when Bowen's coming is Gunter. The most. You never heard a peep out of him. He didn't put anything over social media, unlike the others. I think it was McNulty, Myler, Minone. Yeah, they were in there. It was Gunter, McCleary, Baldock, all of them. Where there was
Hopper, Sam Smith.
Yeah,
I think Liam Kelly was in there for a bit as well.
Liam Kelly's done well. But you can with those ones that you can see what's happened. I can understand what he was doing. But if you've got a person with certain ones, and I think with Myler and McNulty, they never helped themselves with what they were posting on social media, and what Gunter was doing. He definitely didn't help himself with what he was posting on. But if you look to someone like McCleary, if you look at Gunter and Baldock, you never heard a peep. As soon as they got back into that first team when Bowen came in, they hit the ground running, and they went and I have respect for Gunter, and I've said this, and I have respect for Baldock until a couple of weeks ago with that interview.
What was that?
That was interesting. Isn't Reading players meant to have like a press officer with them when they go and do interviews, or someone that sits with them? And that
usually.
Press officer definitely is.
I wasn't there, but usually they will do. Yeah.
That press officer is definitely not going to get a Christmas card this season. So let's talk about what's happened in the past few days. Let's talk about the releases. Do you think the club are correct in what they've done?
Yes, because they've obviously, they've offered terms, or they've, tried to negotiate terms which haven't, been accepted. So, it's not a case that they've just, shoved players out the door and mistreated them. Gunter and McCleary, obviously they've, been incredible servants. I think that their time probably had come.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I completely disagree with with you with McCleary. I think he was a fantastic player for Reading, a fantastic servant. But yeah, I think even he would agree that his better playing days are probably behind him now. Mm-hmm. So it probably was the right time for him to move on. Blackett, yeah, again, he's a good player, Blackett, but is he going to win you a championship?
He's a weird one for me. He's before Christmas, he was terrible. I thought. I didn't think he was doing that well. Didn't really look like he was going to do anything. As soon as people realised his contract was coming up and teams started coming in and looking at him and wanted to approach him, he started playing brilliantly. He started putting some brilliant crosses in. He started playing really well. He was a bit of a...
People have a habit of that when they hear that someone might be about to offer them a load of money. I'm not saying that's what Blackett did, but no. that can happen in football.
But then we also had, I think, on that list of first team players, I think, who else was on that list as well? Obita. I think in football there are moments when a player leaves and you're absolutely gutted.
Yeah.
When I heard he was leaving, I have never felt so gutted. I think I wanted him to be the Ryan Giggs of Reading, one man club.
I know what you mean.
And I wanted him to be here and push us forward. And I wanted him. I think he played in the Premier League for us just for a little bit. I think he might have just played a couple. I'm not 100% sure.
I can't remember.
I can't remember, but
Dominic Saniel did, didn't he? Dominic Saniel came on against like Sunderland or someone, didn't he? But no, with Obita, like it was. Funnily enough, I was actually at. I've known for about a week that he wasn't going to extend his contract, and I actually saw him. I was out with my partner the other day. We were walking around Dinton Pastures, and he was there with his wife and kid, and kind of wanted to go up to him and say, because again, like so much respect for him, just as a player and as a person, I kind of wanted to go up to him and say, I'm sorry, it didn't really work out, but like I said, he was having a nice time with his family, so I didn't really want to get in his way. It's obviously been a tough week for them, so I didn't want to intrude on that. But like I completely agree with you. He's such a nice guy. And I think it's even more difficult when footballers are nice. And that's the same for me with Gunter as well. As people can have their opinions about his performances, but he's just such a nice guy. And McCleary too. I don't know them, but if you get to speak to them, and they're all just like really nice, genuine, down to earth characters. So. Yeah, Jordan obviously being a Reading Academy lad, and we've had some really great times, and to come back from an injury which could have finished him really, and to come back and put some really great performances in. It's a shame they couldn't agree a deal, but I know we've talked more about the financial situation another time, but I think there are reasons why that deal couldn't be agreed and why Jordan needed to go.
There was Charlie Adam as well, who come in for a year, and I think he did what he needed to do.
Scottish Pirlo.
He was
great.
I have never seen anyone that does no running. I don't think he has. If he was on FIFA, he had about 5 pace. I think not even that. But his left foot was wondrous, I think.
I think if the career that he's had, he's never had pace. You can watch videos of him 10 years ago at Liverpool. He wasn't skinning midfielders and defenders. His game has always been sort of up here rather than with his legs. You never lose that. So he always seems to be in space, Charlie. He never seemed to be under pressure. He always used to, every time I saw him, he just seemed to pick up that little gap, and he'd play a pass that no one could see. So yeah, he certainly still had the brain, and I think, like you said there, Ryan, I think he had a job to do, and to be fair to him, I think he did it. So, but again, I understand not giving him a new contract, but he had a decent time.
He could just read the game so well.
I think he put something out yesterday on Twitter that I think the 8 games that he started, Reading only lost once. So I didn't actually realise that, but I thought...
No, I didn't either. I think it was that Talk Reading did a tweet. And he put, I did 24 games, 8 wins or something like that, and starts and all this and all that. And it was absolutely amazing. So, and they were the main ones, and we've got rid of Manone, and The question that I have for you that's going to start moving forward into transfers that are going to happen moving forward, we'll go with them, is Danny Loader. All right. I have huge respect for him. I think what he's done's right. He wasn't getting played in the correct position. We weren't utilising the player that was in the under-23s and the under-20s moving up. So I completely get that. Where is he going? Is he going to Palace? Because I saw reports he's going to sign.
I think there are a couple of teams that were.
I saw this morning as well that Porto.
That was the first I'd heard it. Certainly, Palace had been interested for a while. So
Wolves were there as well.
Obviously, Wolves were. He was about to sign for them. So yeah, there are a couple of Premier League teams looking at him, and it appears that Porto. Apparently they're front runners at the moment, but that's only what I've read. I didn't know anything about.
Danny, if you're watching this, I know you're not, but if you are, go to Porto. If you've looked at anyone that's ever done anything good in football, they've gone from, if they're Portuguese, or if you look at Eric Dyer, they've gone to Portugal. And if you go to Porto, Benfica, or Sporting Lisbon, I think they're probably one of the best 3 academies in the world. I think what they do for players and stuff like that. So for me, if you're listening or want to go to it, I would go for them to do that. Ryan, I know that you haven't asked any questions in a long time because I've just carried on waffling. So if you want to ask the one below the one that I've just asked about the releases, that one. Because this is a very popular question, and you probably know where this is going. There's a certain player.
I know exactly what's coming in.
Go on.
Ovie Ejaria. Is he going to be a Reading player next season? It's a complete guesswork for me. So obviously I know I said the other day that the club had made a sort of another attempt to try and make his deal permanently. I don't know where those talks are at the moment. All I know is that they were trying to get a deal done. If I had to put a bet on it, I would bet against Ejaria being here next season. And I know that won't be a popular statement among Reading fans, but I just think the financial situation is what it is. And as much as I think he is a terrific player on his day, I just personally wouldn't break bank for him. I just think that there are times where he doesn't go missing, but there are games where he's brilliant, and there's games where he has very minimal effect. And if it's going to be in a situation where, okay, we can pay X amount of money and we're going to struggle, but we'll have Ovie Ejaria, to me, I wouldn't make that deal. But obviously, I'm not the one making the decision, so maybe they'll make a different decision.
Okay, so the question that I'm going to follow on with that is: do you think the Sheffield United £3.5 million for Swift, which we're now hearing multiple different things. I don't know whether you know any more about that. They're saying that they would accept that. Do you think that deal there was to try and get Ejaria, Ovie over the line, or do you think?
No, I wouldn't have thought so. I don't think so. I don't know where that line came from, that they'd accepted a £3.5 million bid. As far as I'm aware, they haven't accepted a bids of that much. I can't see them selling Swift for £3.5 million, to be honest. I think
because the owner's now coming out, or hasn't come out, but people are saying the owner's now going to block that. If the club try and,
I think they'll certainly play hardball. They'll certainly play hardball over him if they can. But it comes down to player power, doesn't it? And if the player doesn't want to go, what I will say is that they shouldn't do what they did with Liam Moore and give him double your money off. Yeah, don't. Because as much as, again, a lot of respect for Liam Moore, I think he's a great player, those are the kind of financial decisions that have got Reading into the mess that they're in. So if John Swift does want to go, then sell him. Don't give him, extra money to stay, because I can't. That's not.
So I'm going to add in a little question here. Liam Moore, will he be here start of the season?
I think he will. I honestly think he will. I think he's.
Okay, so the other question I'm going to go with that is: do you think he's going to play at centre back, or do you think they'll find another position for him?
I think he'll play centre back. Listen, Liam he's gone through a rough spell. He's put in some poor performances, but he's such an honest person. He'll tell you himself the next time he does an interview. I can promise you he'll come out and he'll say, I know I haven't been good enough lately. But if you think of all the good performances we've seen from Liam Moore as well, footballers, they go in and out of form, and I have no doubt that he'll go back to being a good centre back at some point. I can't see it.
The question I sort of have with Liam Moore as well is a lot of Reading fans say basically the same thing. Is he a player that's very good, that's just had a rough patch, or is he a player that, because we haven't had the players or do stuff before, he stood out as a good player, but now because the other players are sort of cracking under spot and he's not lifting to that? Do you think that's what it is, or do you think he's just going through where there's no fans or anything, where with him, he roughs off the fans? If the fans get behind him, you can see the passion he has when he gets really into it. Do you think is he one of those players that...
I think he's the same as Swift. I think he's a confidence player. I think when he's confident and things are going well for him and people are behind him, he's brilliant. But similarly to Swift, when, if he gets, an injury and he's out for a few games, or something doesn't quite go his way, maybe his head seems to drop a little bit. But no, I think he's still the same player as he was in that first season. So
perfect. Go on then, Ryan.
So going on, I'll say now as well, I've just got the 5% warning on my phone come up, so I'm going to have to take the headphones out and put it on charge in a second. But during the week, you said about Josh Laurent. So what kind of player do you think he is, and how do you think he'll fit in, and how do you think he'll do at Reading?
There are two sides of it. I think for me, that is the sort of player that Reading, with the financial situation, that is the only kind of player they're going to attract. But I think that's the kind of player that they should be looking at, someone who's a bit younger, hungrier, got a point to prove. But I looked at his stats briefly, and his stat. I know football's not played on paper, don't be wrong, but he didn't seem to set League One alight last season. I think he had a couple of assists and a couple of goals, but we're not talking someone who sort of played an absolute stormer. I have obviously I haven't watched him play. This is only going off what I've seen. I'm just reading his stats. But from what I've heard, he's really energetic, very box to box, a bit like a Rinamosa.
That's what I was going to say. A lot of people sort of put them two in the same bracket, and a lot of people said that the first FA Cup round against Liverpool, apparently Liverpool were playing like half of their first team that, and he completely and utterly bossed it. So is that a Bowen signing? Is that a Bowen type of signing? Do you think
that's someone that's been on the radar for a while? They were looking at him back in January, but I think similarly to Yeardon, when they were looking at him, they knew his contract was running out, and obviously, they obviously had an inkling that they'd be able to get him on the free.
So we'll go on to the next one, which is the last one before we do a little questions for you as well. You said, I just want to quickly go back to Ovi, and you put out a tweet the other day where you said that you think Ovi Ajario best suited as a number 10. And you said, and I completely agreed with that. And then someone also then put out as well that Ovi, with the formation that Bowen sort of picking so far, he's not picking a number 10. It's like a 4-1-4-1. Do you think that's why Ovi won't sign, because of the positioning, and we've got Elise or Ulysses, however you want to say his name?
No, I think from what I understand, Ovi is keen to stay. I think he wants to be at Reading. I think he's happy here, but obviously he wants, I don't know the fine details of whatever was offered to him, but obviously he wants, a certain amount of money, or he wants Reading to honour the terms that were agreed. So I think that's the stumbling block. I don't think it's about him not being happy here or him wanting to play in a different position.
Go on then, Ryan. You can ask the last question.
Okay. I just want to go back up to one that we missed. So there was a one about you, but it goes 2 in 1. So how long have you been covering Reading for?
When was Brian McDermott sacked? 2015?
Yes.
So it was like
Yeah.
6 months. I'd say about 5 years. About 5 years. It might be slightly longer or slightly shorter, but we'll say 5 years.
Okay. And in that time, who is the best and worst player that you've interviewed in terms of like what you get back from them?
Best, like best in terms of nicest, or best in terms of getting, a good quote out of kind of
Both.
thing?
Yeah, both. Yeah, both.
Do both of them.
Ali Al-Habsi is the nicest man in the world. Like, I don't know if either of you have ever met him, but he's just such a nice guy. So I think, he is certainly the nicest person to interview, because he would always stop. He'd come out of the tunnel or the changing rooms, and he'd have his kids with him. And, if you asked him to just stop, he'd make all his kids, stand still, and he'd stand there and he'd give you, 20 minutes, half an hour of his time. He'd let you, just go on and on and on. He'd always say hello. He used to have like I think he used to have like it was almost like an entourage. I think he had like different people from Oman sort of come over and, and watch him play, and he'd go around and he'd greet them all after the game. And he was just such a nice person. So yeah, I think Al-Habsi is the nicest. Best in terms of getting things out of, Jan Kermigan was a really great guy to interview, because he was always really honest. He got really angry with me once over a comment that he made about his retirement and something about Leeds and Chris Wood. But yeah, he'd always give really good stuff, and he was really great to speak to. The worst at Reading, Callum Harriott, because he just didn't say anything. It was just like a yes, no, yes. The longest sentence you get out of him was 6 words. It was a nice guy, don't get me wrong, but I don't think he was a big fan of journalists. So yeah, he was the worst one to interview. Nowadays it's sort of changed, so now the club will sort of bring you out a player they'll say, right, you can speak to this player for after a game. And I just remember sitting, waiting for them to come out, thinking, please don't be Harriet, please don't be Harriet. Because you just know you're just not going to get any, it's pointless. Like, yeah, no, those are the ones.
So
All
is that the same kind of way that I know nowadays they do it? Someone will get man of the match, and then they go up and speak to everyone in the boxes upstairs, have a little chat with them.
Yeah, that's like a corporate thing, I think, isn't it? Whoever gets man of the match has to go up and ask a couple of questions, which is all really annoying, right? And if Reading are listening, because journalists have deadlines, and what's really annoying is when the person who wins man of the match is also the person who's nominated to go and speak to the press. Because what happens is you end up stood in the mix zone for an hour, waiting for someone to go. And by the time, obviously, they've had enough as well. They want to go home to their wife and kids. And they don't want to be stood there any more than we do. So yeah, little request to Reading: media first, go and do the corporate stuff afterwards.
So when I first started leave school, I worked at Medeski Stadium in the boxes, and I used to look after staff members. And this was when I was a lot younger, and I used to smoke. And I went out it was Reading versus Manchester United. You'll like this story. And I went out for a cigarette. And normally with the Premier League games, when a team arrives, security come and block the door for us chitching people to go outside or do anything, because then they let the players through. But the Man United just didn't. So I went outside the time when the coach arrived. I didn't realise this. And there was a smoking area. And the coach come in and everything come out, and I think Sir Alex come out, and I couldn't talk, didn't say anything. And then Rooney come out, I was like, hi, he just went like that. And then Ronaldo walked out, and he was walking past, I went, hi! Really high pitch. I have never gone high pitch in my life to anyone but him. And he turned around and just smiled, like, what are you doing? And nodded and walked off. And I went, that's the most embarrassing but best experience I've ever had in my entire life. So before we finish this sort of interview / have a little chat, we want to do a quick fire round. And basically, we're going to ask you just a quick question. You can't think about it, and the first thing that pops into your mind, you have to say. So
I'm in trouble. I'm in trouble here.
So we've asked questions based on Reading, but also about Man United. We're going to talk a little bit about Man United just because we want to keep you happy. Let's talk about Man United before we do the quick fire question. How do you think the season's gone for you guys?
Just before you go on that one, sorry to interrupt, but I think we should just say that the last game of the season kicked off in 45 minutes. So that
this question could answer that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about just before today. How would you say the whole season?
Ask me again in 2 hours, and I'll tell you. No, I think I think it's been a good season. Again, Ollie had to deal with a lot of stuff on and off the pitch. I think he's put together a good group of players who they're nowhere near the finished article, but they seem to be getting better. Add to that an absolute magician how he's not ended up at Barcelona or Real Madrid, or I'll never know. I think Ollie went through a period where he had a lot of fans on his back. I was never one of them because he was the reason that I fell in love with football when I was about 8. He was my favourite player as a kid. But yeah, I think he's come through a lot of pressure, and he's come out the other side. And I think if they win today, and I think they will, I think finishing in the top 4 with the players that he's had throughout the full season, then to me that's a good season. Yeah,
Fernandes has definitely.
That's just ridiculous. He's ridiculous.
He's one of those players that I think with Pogba, I think that's what they were hoping Pogba would do. The way that he did the team. I think Pogba, I had this conversation, I can't remember where I had this conversation with the other day, but I said Pogba is someone that is a world-class player that needs can't have pressure on him.
He doesn't deal with responsibility. Pogba.
No. He's one of those who's like a child.
Do his own thing.
Yeah, he's a child that just wants to do whatever he wants to do, and then you want someone to sit over him and do and help him. And I think Fernandes is that player to go, right, do what you want, Pogba. I'll just help you out, and we'll get that going. I think
they have leaders in the team now. They have Fernandes, they have Maguire. These people are sort of natural leaders, and I think that does take some of the responsibility off of Pogba's shoulders. And I think he's certainly better. I'm just going to grab my laptop charger because otherwise your quick fire round is going to be very quick fire.
No, that's absolutely fine. That's fine. So, Ryan, question for you.
Okay.
Josh Lorient, success or not? Do you think he's going to do well or not?
To be honest, I don't really know anything about him, but of course, I hope he does. That's all I can really say.
Okay, so what about Ovie Ejaria? Do you think he's going to be here after that?
I was hopeful, but not so hopeful anymore. But it does go back to like what I said a little while ago. Would you rather have Swift, Ejaria, Elise? Because they are very similar players. So I don't think if he does come, I don't think it will be the biggest knock.
Yeah, it will be interesting. So a question for both of you that I have, and this is one of the questions that I would like to ask, and this is still Man United for you, so don't worry. Do you think De Gea will be number 1 next season when Henderson's there after the mistakes that De Gea's doing, or do you think there's a lot of talk as well that Henderson will be going to Chelsea because they want to take over from someone from Kepa? What do you think with the goalkeeper situation?
I think Man United have invested a hell of a lot of money into David De Gea for him not to be first choice goalkeeper. Whoever's decision that was to give him that ridiculous contract, I don't know if it was Solskjaer or someone else behind the scenes, but £350,000 a week is a lot of money for a football player. And you put yourself in the Alexis Sanchez situation again, where he's earning just the most eye-watering wage. That if you don't play him, then that's a big statement. Offering De Gea that contract is a huge statement, and so I think he will be the number 1 because I don't think anyone will take him because no one's going to pay 350 grand to watch him drop a ball into the net, and I don't think Man United will have the bottle to drop him after investing that much money into him. So I would have dropped him weeks ago, but they haven't. So I can't see him being dropped. No.
So everyone, all the viewers out there, come back next week to see if he's still crying after Leicester beat him, or he's very happy that they're in the Champions League. So
De Gea saves a penalty in the 90th minute.
He saves it, but then fumbles it straight in.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
So, right, let's do the quick fire round. So there's only a few selection questions that we could do, and then we'll let you get on with your day, and then we'll go back to do it. So, who's your favourite Man United player of all time?
Solskjaer.
I think you did just answer that before. Going on to Reading, who would have been your vote for player of the season
for this year?
Yeah.
Mate, I think, yeah, purely because of the amount of games he sort of seemed to change, and he got them wins that they shouldn't have really got, and yeah, for me it would have been Mate.
We'll throw it in there as well. What about for Man United?
Greenwood, and only because he's been there for the full season, and just because of the impact that he's had, just coming from literally being nobody to where he is now. I think, I would say Greenwood.
Solskjaer, if you're watching, and I know you probably won't because you're about to get kicked off, but afterwards, if you want to loan Greenwood out to any championship team just to get experience, we're happily enough to take it. Trust me, we will not argue. Just give it to us.
Different level.
Do you think Bone will last the end of the season?
No.
Oh, was not expecting that.
I think he should. I think he should.
Yeah.
But I don't think he will. If it was down to me, he would. But just knowing how Reading have operated in the last few seasons, I don't really have much to go on to suggest that unless he wins every game, he's going to be here.
So do you think he's the right person to kick us on and eventually take us back into the Premier League?
I think he can. I think he's shown signs that he can certainly build a platform. Whether he can take them from that platform to where they want to be, I mean, only he can prove it, really.
Okay, so the next question is Puskas. So there's a two part to this question that I'd like to ask you. Do you think he had a successful season? And the second one is, do you think he will be successful at the club?
Yes, I think he did have a successful season because 14 goals, it's not, is it 14 or 15? It's not a bad return 14. For a striker. And, this is, he's come to, he's a young lad. He's come to a new country. It's a different culture. It's a new environment. For the most part, it's a new language. He did speak a bit of English, but his English wasn't the best. So, it must have been a bit of a culture shock for him. And certainly, a lot of pressure on him coming for the amount of money he did and being sort of, that record-breaking transfer at the time. I think he's had a decent season. Do I think he'll be a success at the club? If, and this is a big if, Reading play to his strengths, yes.
Do you think they have been?
No, I don't think they played to it. No. I know it was a bit of a fluke thing, but it wasn't fluke. It was class. It was a one-time thing. But that game against Cardiff, when they got the ball in behind and he scored that wonder goal. I mean, that was great. But it was actually his second goal where they just flashed the ball across the box. And I think that's what he is. I think he is just a finisher. They need to get balls into the box. All this tippy-tappy stuff around it. I just don't think he's not the link-up player. He's not that great in the air, even though he's a big lad.
And I think that's one of the things me and Ryan have spoke about on the pod as well, and Ryan would probably agree with this, is he is a two-striker striker.
Oh,
he
100%.
Is someone he needs a bulldog or someone that's going to do the running. Not a bulldog because I think he's really harmed himself. And we'll talk about that next week as well, with lots of other things as well, with what's gone on with Bulldog, and probably hear something more about that later on. But
I always, slightly off topic, but I always thought, because Danny Loader did a lot of running, I did always kind of want to see the Loader and Puskás partnership, because there was a part of me that thought that could develop into something given time, but obviously not to be.
For the next one, do you think playoffs are realistic? Obviously, there's a lot of ifs
I mean,
and
right now, no, because the financial situation, which we'll have to talk about, and players leaving, there's no certainty over getting players in. I can't see them attracting any better than what they already have. So no, I wouldn't say it's realistic. No.
Okay, so this question is a little bit off topic, but I found this, and Ryan can smile because he knows the question that's about to happen. Okay, so this is going to be an interesting answer. Who's better, you or Jonathan Lowe?
I have to say me, don't I?
Yes, good lad. I was hoping you would say that.
He's a good lad, Jonathan. Yeah, he's a good lad.
Go on then, you write this question. You can do this one.
Yeah. So about like you and what you're doing in the future, but what's the dream for you, like going forward? Do you want to stay in like sport journalism, and if you do you want it to be solely down to Reading, Man United, or would you rather do like English football as a whole, where you're not tied down to one?
That's a really good question. Do you know what? I've never actually thought of it. I think like my dream job is I'd love to, and this is a very way down the line, but yeah, I'd love to sort of head up all the sort of media for Man United. To be sort of a PR manager or something at Man United. I think that would be a really cool job. Yeah, I think that's probably my very, very long-term aspiration, but I'm far away from that.
Well, I think that gone a heck of a lot better than I ever imagined. I thought I was going to get starstruck when I first was going to speak to you, because we all talk about you and we all want to get to know you. So it's brilliant that you've lost your virginity doing podcasts today. And what we're going to be doing, yeah, exactly. So what we're going to do for everyone at home and for everyone listening, from every Monday, we might be released, or Tuesdays, it's going to be around that time, depending on Mr. Friday's availability. And what we're going to do is every week, we're either going to do some little games to sort of get to know him and get to know us a bit more. We're also going to give you the up-to-date transfer rumours and up-to-date anything that's going on within the club or anything to do with football. This is not just based on Reading Football Club, even though it seems it is, that we will be talking about in the future once we get a little more videos, a little bit more ideas of where we 100% going to go. We just want to get the content that we really love, and which is Reading, to get out to you guys. But we will be talking about a heck of a lot more stuff, and we will get to know him a lot more. And moving forward, we are going to do this so good. And if any other podcast out there thinks they can rival us just because we've got him on, you lot lost already. So thank you ever so much for coming on. We're just going to say goodbye to everyone. Thank you ever so much for joining. This will be out. Ryan, you get to choose. Do I release this Monday or do I release this Tuesday? Actually, no, you don't get to choose. Mr. Friday, do I release this Monday or do I release this Tuesday? It's up to you.
Tuesday. I'm busy Tuesday, so I won't be by my phone much. So if I get a little stick, I won't see it until Wednesday.
Perfect. So this will be going out Tuesday at 11 a.m. For everyone on Podbeam. It will be on there. We'll be on Apple Music. I think we're just sorting out Spotify and Google Play. I think that's going. We are now on Alexa. So you can listen to us while you're using Alexa. We are now going to be we're on YouTube as well, as you can see. And we will be going to do more things moving forward on there. So thank you ever so much, everyone joining and listening. If you have any questions for us that you would like to put us to across to Courtney next week, then please put it in the comment section on the YouTube channel, or please tweet us. And then we will be able to ask him the questions that you all guys really want to hear. And we will get it all out to you. So thank you, guys, for watching, and